What's a declassified CIA document that you can tell me about? Captain Edgar Mitchell, who piloted the lunar module on Apollo 13 in 1971, had a different take on existence after viewing Earth from the outside. Well, what was it? Believed there was a different form of consciousness that needed to be studied, so he formed EDMA Corporation, which studies psychic phenomena in people. What caused him to believe this so much that he created this corporation out of it? Did he talk to an extraterrestrial and speak through their mind? I've heard about that. That is classified information. What I can say, unclassified, is that his reason for going into this field was, quote, he deeply believes that by understanding their psychic selves, people can better understand each other and the whole natural order of things. People and nature can develop a sort of harmony from this knowledge and create a better world. Well, why haven't we done this? What do you think? Does his corporation have any proof of experiments done? Earl Geller, a 25-year-old native to Israel, was known for psychokinesis, or PK, in his country. And psychokinesis is that you can move things with your mind, Moving things with your mind? Dr. A. Puharich, a physician from New York City, arranged a trip for him to visit America and be studied further. Okay, and what happened? Through a series of tests witnessed by a group of distinguished scientists and physicians, he successfully twisted metal using his mind. I'm sorry, what? It seems it was out of pure concentration, but the twisting continued of this metal long after he had left the scene. So there are people out there that could use this for aiding the government in whatever. Yeah. We found out there was a civilization on Mars. How? There was a highly cultivated psychic and astral projector that we would use to remote view times in history by giving them an envelope with coordinates and a time frame on it to see what happened. A lot of times we would be able to confirm that these events did happen from just historical records. But this time we put into the envelope 1 billion BC, and the coordinates were Mars. But they didn't know that. What did they see? What they saw was a dying planet that had an atmosphere that completely depleted within a few weeks. And the person they were talking to in the vision thought that they were having a hallucination of the astral projector because of what was happening in their atmosphere. But they were talking to them. How are they talking to them, though? They didn't speak the same language, right? Apparently through their mind. All of the oceans and lakes had just dried up instantaneously. People were being boiled alive. The rest of the people were in underground caverns trying to keep themselves alive enough to figure out how to get off the planet and continue their civilization elsewhere. That must have been really scary for the person projecting themselves. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. Was it humans who were on Mars? There were beings that looked like humans, but there were also people who were very tall and had very long limbs that were reported. We don't know what that was. Yeah, but anyways, they were waiting to get on this large circular metal object, or so our astral projector said, until we brought them back with the sound of our voice to 1984, which is the year that it was that we did this experiment. Well, were you able to confirm any of this is true? I don't know, but the pictures that we've taken in recent years have shown pyramid structures and monoliths on Mars that were recorded in that session as being there on the planet. So, I mean, what the? Can you believe the psychic actually thought that what was in the envelope was Earth in the future? But it was Mars, 1 billion BC. It's funny though, right? Yeah. Yeah. USA took over the Philippines using psychological warfare in the 1950s. How? We knew Filipinos believed in the paranormal and were mostly afraid of vampires. You took over the country using vampires? One of the rebel fighters that was trying to take their country back, we found him and then punctured his neck and drained him of his blood and then left him out there. It's pretty funny because they found him and they freaked out. It was the #1 story in the Philippines at the time, and at that moment we put Ramon Magsaysay, who was a puppet for us, in the runner for president and funneled a bunch of money into his campaign from DC so he would be guaranteed to win. Why would you kill an innocent man for that? It was the only way to control the Philippines from the inside, was to be in charge of their president. Pause. By that logic, anyone can funnel money into a presidential campaign and guarantee a win so that the president can be the puppet for whoever gave them the money, right? Yeah, I mean, we did a little extra things like drugged his opponent's drink before one of the speeches so he appeared drunk while he was on stage, and Ramon Magsaysay looked like the more coherent person for president. That is diabolical. We also flew over villages and said on loudspeaker that if they didn't vote for Magsaysay that they would be cursed forever, but we really didn't need to do that. That was just something extra I did. Yeah. We needed public support to invade Cuba, so we thought of a lot of fake attacks to blame on Cuba to justify us going in. What kind of fake attacks? My personal favorite was plan to blow up a U.S. ship in Guantanamo Bay and to blame Cuba. So you were going to be behind hurting our military to justify going into Cuba. We weren't going to hurt real American citizens. We were going to use dummies and make fake funerals for them to be televised. We're going to use dummies and make it look like real humans were attacked. We needed the attack to appear to be directed towards our militaries. We planned for the incidents to be taken place at Guantanamo to give a genuine appearance of it being done by hostile Cuban forces. Okay, and out of all of the plans in this very long document, which ones did you actually do? I can't tell you which attacks were actually us, but I can tell you we planned on it, and we eventually invaded Cuba for their attacks on us. Okay, and this was the 1960s. So if you've been doing this since at least then, does that mean that you've been coordinating fake attacks just to justify going into other countries? In the 1960s, artists were very influential in their fight against the Vietnam War and were exposing a lot of things about the government we didn't want out there, so we made them rich so they would be less influential. How are they less influential when they have more money? They consider themselves of the people and were pushing for socialism, so we showed up to their small artist shows and would buy their pieces for $1 million each to make them rich and not of the people anymore. And they really all stopped being socialist when you made them rich? Everybody's capitalist when they start making money. Where did all this money come from that you were paying these artists with? Your tax dollars, obviously. I need names. Which artists succumbed to this master plan? Every single famous artist that you know from the 60s is all our doing. So you're talking like Andy Warhol? Gene Davis? Yep. They had a grassroots following and then turned their back on them when they became famous and rich, rubbing elbows with Marvin Gaye, Aretha Franklin, the Supremes. I don't get it. They finally had money to help the people and actually make a change. Why didn't they do it? Never underestimate people's greed. It always trumps the heart. Yeah. We dropped a bunch of Osama bin Laden toys over Southeast Asia. For the kids. That's nice of you to drop toys for children, but why Osama? Because he was considered a hero, but whose hero has their face peel off when left out in the sun and turns into a demon? You did that to make the kids fear him? Yeah, but it's fun. But wouldn't you want the adults to fear him? Well, they're going to show their parents, and the parents are very religious in that area, so after seeing him as a demon, they're not going to support Osama bin Laden or hide him anymore. So demon dolls, that was your plan? We did a lot of little things to dismantle his reign in the area, but the biggest thing was the vaccination project. Oh my god, what vaccination project? We went into villages and gave them free vaccinations, but we were actually drawing their blood and doing DNA sampling to see where his closest relatives lived so we could better pinpoint where his family was so we could know where he was. Misleading a bunch of poor people into giving you their blood? Yep. That's pretty messed up. Well, that's how we found him. So, okay, but most people now think 9/11 was an inside job. Was he really behind the attacks or was he just a scapegoat?